Yeah, just well, I'll see what's if I get any messages from upstairs, like around 9 a.m. But we'll see. I don't know what their I don't know what their energy is going to look like getting up and going. Karen's kind of waking up, ready for the weekend to get going. So
That's cool,
it's
man. No problems with me.
it reminds me back in the day. Sometimes when I get up early, well, I'm always up early, but when I used to run restaurants, uh, I enjoyed like if I was going to be there for 12 hours, 14 hours, I would rather be there at 6 a.m. and work till 8 p.m. than to come at 8 a.m. and stay to close. Like if I had to put in my 12, 13, 14 hours, I would rather be there in the morning because that feel in the morning of just like turning the coffee machine on before stuff starts bustling. I like that. I like that. I like that in the school too. I like kind of walking up through the school and it feels really instantaneous, the change, but you're walking through the school and there's people in the school because like the offices are kind of open, but everybody's kind of like in their uh opening up like that first 15 minutes, it's getting kind of set, they're putting out like I walk past the attendance window and they're putting out the snacks for the students. It reminds me of open up the restaurant. I like that. But that's also the vibe sometimes on Saturday mornings that I have here. Like I'll come down and do the pod with you and then I'll stop. I'm like, oh, I think somebody's up. And then you kind of pause for a second. And then as soon as that happens, the bubble bursts. You're like, okay, I guess the day has officially started. People are waking up.
This is season 9, episode 32, number 380 of the Decoded Podcast. I like the
post hiatus.
Post hiatus. I was going to
Yeah.
say, I don't even remember what you look like.
Mhm.
Welcome, Gary and Rochelle. I even posted a
Good morning.
note there about, I feel like I haven't seen them in such a long time either. It's craziness. Rochelle says she did see GK in person a few weeks ago, which is really cool. There's been some wacky connections over the last 2 weeks since we've been casting here on the Saturday morning. I think I may have told you, Chris, in well, first let me address what you said about that early morning, that quiet time, the low buzz, no real action going on when you're up and around.
Mm-hmm.
I've come to appreciate that here. I was never really a big fan of that because I've heard you talk about it and I've like, whatever. But now I'm much more a fan of it. And for example, today I woke up, did my morning routine thinking, okay, this is good. We're going to cast today. It's going to be nice to hang out with you guys again. And I look at my phone and my son sent me a text last night saying, please make sure I'm awake by 9:50 a.m. Okay, so I know that's because if I don't wake him up, all three of them, they'll sleep till 11 or 12 without any kind of like just easily, which is sweet for me because then I just get this peace and quiet. Nothing's happening. It's just me doing whatever I'm doing. But this morning, after you go, I'll do some more stuff. Then I'll make sure he's up if he's not up. But I get that. And when you were talking about that, it reminded me of the times this past school year where when my son had hockey practice in Cambridge, kind of late in the evening, he was just next door to my school. And sometimes I would go over to the school, take care of a couple of things. And it was the nighttime version of the morning. You walk in and it's like the lights are all on. You can hear a hum. You can hear the hum of the HVAC kind of thing. And I'm like, holy cow, like I'm all alone in this gigantic building. And it's kind of cool to just walk the halls. And I knew I was alone because we have like a sign-in clipboard and there were no other names saying that they were in the building at that time. So it was just me according to the clipboard. And it was just this really peaceful, cool feeling to know that I'm the only one in this building. And it had the hum and the feel that is the exact same early in the morning, probably when you walk into a building and there's nobody really there. So I get it. It was cool to have those moments too. Um,
It's
sorry.
it's tricky. No, I was gonna say it's tricky though, because I'm also aware that everybody deserves that space. Mine just happens to be like from 5 to whatever X. Like I luxuriate in it. But I also have to be careful because when somebody is just waking up and I've already been awake, like my day's already in motion and they pop into my world, I have to be careful not to kind of hit them too hard with like questions and thoughts and like making them hit like they're stepping on a moving train. I have to slow into the station, just kind of pause there for a second. It just kind of like exists. Door, isn't going to slam shut really quick. Make sure there's the nice music playing. And then just kind of like easily kind of like kind of move out of the station. I have done that before where um, there's things that I set in motion and somebody comes downstairs and I'm like, okay, so and I get into the like this like already on the train and I can see in their face they're like, oh man, I wish he went out for coffee. Wish yours he went left and did some photography or left and did like went and did some writing because I'm just hitting them way too hard on the day, way too
It,
hard. And I've
it,
made that mistake with colleagues too.
uh, it's funny you say that because that's my morning every morning. Uh, I will wake up my wife and my kid at a particular time each morning, and sometimes my wife will just be like, "Ah," because I've been up for an hour and a half, and I'm like, "Yo, it's time." I'm turning lights on, and I'm living at 100, and she's like, "I'm at, like, 2%. What are you doing?" Same with my son. My son, it's funny. I'll be like, "Yo, dude, it's time to wake up," and he's like, "You know the drill," which is, um come back right before you have to get in your car and drive away, because then I know that's when I have to roll out of bed, which is hilarious. He doesn't always do that. Sometimes he's like, "Okay, I'm up," but sometimes he's like, "Come back." "Okay, I give you your first wake up." Um, I've been told that people are like, "Calm down." I'm like, "Yo, I am calm. I'm just awake, and I've been awake and in silence for a little bit now, and, sorry, I need to pay more to sorry. So I get that. I totally get that.
It is a little bit of a sorry, not sorry though, because part of it, there is an element of it's a little bit like I guess I would compare it to I come when because I am first up often coming downstairs and like when Hazel hears somebody coming down the stairs, like she's ready to go. And there is something really nice about that, like to be the center of, the dog's attention and she's just like ready, like, hey, great to see you, like you're back down. I get it, human to human sometimes it doesn't read that way, it reads as maybe needy or annoying or whatever. But I do the same thing to the students when they come in the classroom. Like they'll come in kind of, and I have a home room, so the kids coming in like at 10 to 9 or whatever, kind of head down, slightly sleepy, just kind of existing in their own head. Like they might not even have a memory of coming all the way to school. They remember waking up and now they're at school 45 minutes later. So they're a bit dopey coming in and I hit them with, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm naming them as they come in. It's never just a good morning. It's a hit them with their name. "Good morning, so and so. Great to see you. How you doing?" And I can see them. They're like, "Oh, what? Where did you come from?" Like somehow they didn't even realize there'd be another human being in the room. It's one of those kind of funny. It always reminds me, and I think this was something that um, created a lot of tension for me, and it still sticks with me. First, this idea that because of and I won't say because of technology, something has changed culturally. And maybe this has always been this, but I've noticed it. Something has changed culturally that sometimes you and I talked about this back, and we've talked about this a couple of times. This idea that we can just fade in and out of people's spaces, and you don't have to do the salutations. Like salutations are those is the nice social punctuation to kind of say, "I am here now. We are engaged. Here we are." capitalization at the top of the sentence. And then as I leave your space, I'm going to say goodbye. It was good to see you, or I'll talk to you in a couple of days. The period on that social engagement. And I notice often sometimes we just kind of fade into each other's spaces without, and I'm not looking for ceremony, but I think it is important to say hello, to acknowledge that there's another human in the room, that there's now a social dynamic that is turned on. Even if you choose to ignore it and put your earbuds back in, you are now in community. So my family doesn't always appreciate that because they're just slowly waking up. But I will say, definitely, it is something I remember this so often. This is how it pops up, like the memories of COVID teaching, and this idea that you're just kind of like you hyper aware that half of what you're trying to do with your community is just floating off into space, into this kind of vacuum, because there's no reciprocity in the energy. You're just kind of saying things and doing things, and you can take it or leave it. And people maybe show up, maybe they listen, maybe it's just an image on the screen. Like, you had no clue if the audience was listening, none. So I think I hold on to that when I come into people's spaces. I know sometimes it comes off as annoying. I make sure that somebody knows I'm there, and that I acknowledge that they are there, for better, for worse. So again, walking through the hallways in the early morning, I see, like, you're just kind of like, they're unshuttering their spaces, they're opening their door, opening their window. I make sure I'm like, yo, hey, how's it going? And they're like, oh, whew. It was Clough. I'm like, it is Clough. Have a great day.
I don't usually ask kids anymore, "Hey, how are you doing?" Because they always say the same thing. They're like, "I'm tired," or this or that. Like, I get the same responses from these kids at school. So I just, when they walk in the room, I'm like, "Hey, it's great to see you today. I get to spend another day with you." And then they're looking at me like, "Oh, Mr. C." But again, by that point, I'm raring to go. I'm like, "Let's
Yep.
go. Let's get this going, because the sooner we get this going, the sooner I get to leave and go do what I want to do outside of work." And they're just like, "Oh man." And I'm like, "Yeah, bring it on. Bring on the old man so we can get out of here." And that's funny too, in and of itself. But I wanted to say, so Rochelle said she saw GK in person a few weeks ago. So I've been enjoying I found Gary a couple of times on social media without Gary knowing he was on social media. So he's at a principal thing, or he's at some kind of school board work related activity, but there are people there who are heavy on the social media. And so I grabbed this one shot of Gary. He was at an AI innovation thing, and there was a teacher from my school who was going around interviewing people and making like videos of herself at this event. And there was one shot of her like doing her thing, and I pause it and I look in the corner. There's Gary. So I sent it to him like, "Yo, dude, who's this handsome fella behind this lady doing her thing?" So I just wanted to share, Rochelle, that I'm glad you got to see him in real life. I see him on social media. And then I was telling Chris the other day, last weekend was last weekend was a busy one for me. I didn't have telephone time, meaning like I couldn't call people and talk to them because there was things going on. I was always with people. And poor Gary, I texted Gary, I'm like, "I need to talk to you about some stuff." And he's like, "Okay, give me a call." I'm like, "I can't. I'm either I was at a retreat, so I was like doing retreat stuff, or then I was doing family stuff, and there was just no time by myself." But Gary's like, "Hey, Roland wants to call." I'm like, "I want to call, but I can't call. But I'm letting you know I want to call." I dislike those times. I do not like that. But you and I were talking about this earlier, that like your weekend is jam packed, but you didn't do that on purpose. There are just things that are happening that need to happen, and they're just happening sequentially as the weekend goes on. Now that my son's hockey season is over, the hockey season's over, and my other son is home from university, that has calmed down. Because when he was at hockey and the other one was at school, I was ping-ponging everywhere often, whether I liked it or not, whether I wanted to do it or not. But right now, we're in a calm state, and I do kinda like it. I do kinda like it. But anyway, so glad that Rochelle saw Gary, Gary saw Rochelle. Um, can I talk a little bit about the retreat I was on last weekend?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Rochelle's done this program. Um, so thanks, Rochelle, for passing information on to me about it. And like my principal's done this program, my vice principal's done this program. I know Gary's interested in it, but there's some logistical issues. So Gary, we need to get you in this thing too at some point before you retire, because I think you really like it. Um, everybody's told me the same thing. Like you spend a lot of time looking inward. And so last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning, I was part of this. It's a faith formation slash leadership program, and they do it in sections. So last weekend was the first section, the first module. We have 5 more to go. And dude, I got to tell you, I and I know you'll understand this. I was exhausted of looking into myself for 2.5 days. Absolutely exhausted. So when I came home, when I came home Thursday night, and it's a residential program, so you can sleep over, but it was down the street from my house. So I'm like, I'm not sleeping over if it's down the street from my house. I came home and I was gassed. I was like just tired from I was tired from doing something different during the day. My body wasn't used to sitting as much as I did for the day. There was that. There was like meeting new people and taking risks all day long. And these were like self-imposed risks. Like that's the other thing I was told. You're gonna get out of it what you put in. So if you want to just sit there and not share and not talk and not respond, that's okay. You can do that. But you got to think about what's going to benefit you. Like, what is the purpose of doing this? Why are you doing this? I'm doing it so I can become a better person, better husband, better dad, better teacher. That's what I want from it. And so every time there was a moment to take a risk, I would think about my vice principal saying, you could sit there and say nothing. That's your call. But you're probably going to get more out of it if you share and if you interact. So I was gassed, meeting new people, taking risks, trying to remember names. So I come home and my youngest is like, "Hey, how'd the day go?" I'm like, "It was good." He goes, "What did you do?" And I was like, I don't think I can put it into words right now." And he was starting to get amped up. He was like getting bothered with me because I think he felt like I was blowing him off. And then my wife told him, she was like, your dad spent the day doing something your dad doesn't do, like reflecting, looking inward. And I was emotional. Like it was 2.5 days of me feeling emotions that I never really feel or I don't pay any attention to, which is probably part of my growth plan. But anyway, so she was talking, thank God for her. She was like, "Hey, your dad just had like it was kind of a rough day for your dad, even though it was a really good day. It was rough because he doesn't do this all day. And now he's here and he's doing dad details kind of thing." Like I walked in, I just started doing dad details until the next morning. All that to say, now that it's been a week, I feel great in terms of like getting into this mode of reflecting, intentional reflection, intentionally looking inside and using guiding questions to kind of get me thinking about who I am, where I've come from, my connection to my faith, my connection to other people, how I operate, what I do. So very valuable. But yeah, I was telling somebody the other day, I'm like, I got sick and tired of looking inside of myself. And it was intense and it was a little bit like I said, it was emotional. So I was emotional the whole time. People are looking at me, they're like, "What's up?" I'm like, "I can't talk right now. I just I need to be alone. I need to think. I need to deal with whatever." Because there were a lot of questions about like they called it your graced history. So like looking at life events from right back when you were a kid to now and the different ways that that God was there beside you, with you, without you, how would you perceive these things? And I was just like, man, I thought a lot about stuff that I usually don't think about and kind of put aside. So it was 2.5 days of that, but valuable because I've been using some of the things they talked about, I've been aware of this week. And it's been pretty cool to um, deal with situations and understand a little bit more about me because we did like a personality test. We got the results. And then using that information to kind of understand myself better and why I might operate a certain way. So I was talking to my family about something and somebody said something. I'm like, yeah, I was very suspicious of this situation. Like, "Oh, why were you suspicious?" And I start telling them, and they're like, "So what did you do about it?" And I said, "Well, I put my suspicions aside and tried to deal with the situation, knowing that I'm a suspicious kind of guy, and I should probably just park that for a second and see what comes next." And my kids were just staring at me like I was crazy. They're like, "What do you mean you're a suspicious person?" And I'm like, I start to explain a little bit about my patterns and stuff. I'm like, "I'm a suspicious person." Um, but there's a reason for that. And I didn't get into that too much, but I was like, I saw this kid, I was very suspicious, but I suspended that for a moment, knowing that that's kind of how I roll to maybe not let it influence my decision at the moment and yada, yada, yada. So it was kind of cool to start putting things into practice. And as you know, you and I have been very intentional at different times in our life since we've known each other about intention and doing things a certain way to test them out and see how they help us. Do they help us? Do they hurt us? Can we sustain what we're doing? Do we want to sustain what we're doing? That was last weekend. So I missed you guys, but um, it was a pretty cool experience. And we're going to have to get Gary on board at some point. Rochelle says, glad you took the plunge. Yeah, I'm glad I took the plunge too. That's what I was up to. I was happy I did it.
I like that. I figured when you first told me about it, I figured you'd be kind of digging into stuff like that. Um, I liked I'm so what's the word? Hungry for a retreat experience that puts me in that space. Um, I've been thinking more and more about my going on a silent retreat, like absolute silence, where um, from beginning to end, there's no talking whatsoever, no devices. Um, there's lectures that you go and listen to. You get a small journal you're given at the top of it, and that's all you get. The one that I've been looking at, it happens in Orangeville, and a friend of mine went on it. They said it was just they didn't. They said it is not a reset. They said because you come out and the world is there, and all your lived triggers and sort of things like all the stuff is there as soon as you go out there. But what they did really appreciate was um, being able to get in touch with, they said, though momentary, being to get in touch with the quiet, just the quiet. And they appreciated the way they put it, having the enforcement of silence, because they find it really difficult for, like, they're still working on this, but they felt like they don't have the skills to quiet themselves. So they need the enforcement of quiet. And part of it, with the way they described it, started to feel like this kind of like nature bound incarceration, like almost like they were in solitary confinement. Um, but I had to kind of park that and think of it from the point of view of how difficult it is to disconnect and just kind of be with yourself and look at yourself and think about yourself, not in a selfish, but more self-centered, like being able to actually see your layers as they go in. And that's an infinite peak. Like I don't believe we can ever get back to root. You can't really, but you're adding other things, other thoughts, other strategies around it to kind of like give you a way to deal differently moving forward. So I loved when you sort of framed this as, leadership. I automatically really leaned into how much that might mean leading yourself, like sort of like helping yourself to sort of go to a place, like a pathfinder. So that was cool. And I'm happy you had the experience, because I also know you had to work to get it. Like it wasn't handed to you. You had to sort of like have conversations and sort of um build bridges in order to be able to sort of to participate in that. So it sounds to me like the work was worth it. The work was worth it. And that's
Mm,
awesome.
adding a layer to it, um, so it happened at St. Jerome's University, which is on the University of Waterloo campus, and, Sarah and I and the boys used to go to church at St. Jerome's University at the, with the UCC, University Catholic Community. They have what they now call the chapel. It wasn't called the chapel before, but that's where we used to go for mass. So, and kind of a funny story, the chapel that's there is where Sarah and I were married, and it's not a
Mm,
chapel anymore, it's a boardroom, but it still has, like, it still has the stained glass windows on the outside, and everything's the same about it, except they removed all, like, it's not a church anymore, it's a boardroom. So there's a boardroom table and chairs all around it. Um, that's what used to be the chapel, but it's not anymore. So in our times where we got to be alone to do some writing and reflecting, I would go off to a corner and I do what the task was, but then I move around because I need to move. So I walked to the chapel, which is not very far from where we were meeting, and I it was so cool to be in a space that was so positive and influential earlier in my life here and early in the life of my boys. I was walking up and down the little hallways around the chapel where Ben and Will used to, when they'd get a little antsy, so we'd leave the mass and they would run up and down the hall. And so I was standing in these hallways, just it brought me right back to them being little people just running up and down the hall so they wouldn't cause problems in the mass. So it was like that was part of like that was part of the emotional response that I had, that literally I was parked in the places where I used to be as a younger father, right? And at a different time in my life. So it was like a lot was bubbling up around, hey, this is where my kids kind of grew up in their faith, and where Sarah and I, started when I came here. This is where we went to church. And just remembering how I was then compared to how I am today. It was really neat. It was really neat. And then to see the university's different now. Spaces where there used to be parking lots, there's now friggin' buildings. So it's like, "Oh my god, I used to walk through this path to get to church, and now there's a new residence building on my right-hand side and an educational building on my left-hand side," and it's just like, "This is whack." But, it was a cool start. There were lots of cool connecting moments for me, um, and getting to know the people, like, you're with the same crew of people. So, it's funny when we were going to eat at the cafeteria is right across from the old chapel, and we're standing there, I was mesmerized looking at the stained glass, and somebody said something to me, and I said, "I was married here." And they're like, "What?" I was like, "My wife and I got married right here." My wife stood right here where I was standing at that time, and I remember a photo being taken of one of Sarah's students, um, came after the ceremony to get a picture with Sarah in her wedding dress. So I'm like, "Oh my god," like, I'm literally standing where I have a picture of my wife standing here with a grade 3 kid getting a picture, and every it was funny because as I'm staring at this and I'm like, "Hey, I got married here," the people around me were a lot more like, "Well, frig, you can't just drop that on us and not kinda talk about it." So it was one of those moments where they were all looking for more, and I was just in the moment.
mhm.
Just it was lots of things going on. And, you're right, I did kinda have to work for it. I don't know what it was like for Rochelle, but when I put my name in for this years ago, like, write us a letter and explain this and that. It was literally I expressed an interest, And then about a month later, I got an email saying you're in. And I was like, whoa, you mean I'm in? I expressed interest. I didn't say I wanted to do this. And they're like, no, you're doing it now. And then I couldn't participate because the timelines didn't work. But that's how it was when I first put my name in. They're like, thanks, you're in. I'm like, what? Now it was like, hey, thanks for expressing interest. Now we need, if you're still interested, you need to write a letter and answer these following questions. And then we'll take it to the committee and we'll let you know what's going to happen. I was like, oh, okay. Rochelle says Loyola House in Guelph has those too. So I believe she's referring to the silent retreat. I like it. I think it's more important now than ever for people to find a place of silence and solitude. It seems like for people of our vintage, we can be on 20, like we have New York City available to us all the time through this thing. Like that nothing goes to sleep anymore. There's a 24-hour news cycle. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep, I can always go to my buddy, the internet, and find whatever I want because there's stuff happening 24/7. Oh, Rochelle says it was an involved process for her as well. Yeah. So do me a favor, and I'm going to force you to tell us about the show that you're directing, or are you still directing, or have you directed and now you're just watching?
See, that's great. It's great because that's the tension, dude.
Oh.
No, it really is the tension. So if I go, okay, I only know my experience and sort of what I've observed others. I'm not speaking to a standard here. So I think it's important to kind of like mention that, because even though I'll tell, my side of this story, even as I say it, I recognize that there could be someone that has done community theater stuff, and their take on this would be very different. I've made a connection with this dude. I think his name is Shale Reisman, and I think I might be saying that right. I don't know if he's ever going to find this content, but he's in Whitby, and he was actually the director of a play that I went and saw at the Whitby Courthouse called Rabbit Hole. Fantastic script. And I can only kind of say that this production was fantastic as well, and the cast was fantastic. But if anyone, you get a chance to go see this play, if it pops up at your local community theater or even a professional theater, go see it. It deals with family trauma. There's some comedy in there. A terrible event that happens between a young couple, and it's just you jump into their story after the event, and you don't get to see the ending of the resolution. So it's a really cool snapshot kind of pocket script. Anyways, Shale is the director of it, and I've connected with him online and sort of shared my thoughts about directing and being involved with community theater. So it's kind of cool to hear other people's perspective and realize, wow, it wasn't even that I hadn't considered that when I get that perspective, because to say you hadn't considered that suggests like somehow there was an opportunity to consider it. I really didn't. I only had my method, and I saw it through to the end, so to speak. So, as you mentioned, yeah, the play is Arsenic and Old Lace. So classic play, farce, comedy, depending on your perspective. Cary Grant was in the movie, and the lead character. You can find a Hallmark made-for-TV movie on YouTube if anyone wants to check it out. And I think Tony Randall plays the character that Cary Grant did in the movie. So, am I still directing? So, yes, in my own mind, because as I've watched I've been at every performance. So we opened last Thursday, so it was Thursday, Friday. Sorry, we opened last Friday, Saturday, 2 shows, and then there was a Sunday matinee. And then this week it's Friday. It was Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday. We closed tonight. So we've got 2 shows today, and then it's done. So I'm in the audience. There's no seats. There's no extra seats. So I'm kind of just standing at the back watching it. As I'm watching it, I know the show inside and out now, so I know the timings of it, certain things. I check my watch. I'm like, yeah, they're on track. I'm still clocking that kind of stuff. As stuff happens, I'm making a mental note like, oh, They've dropped a line. Cool. They protected each other. Like I'm still doing the color commentary in my own head. Am I sending those notes back to the performers? No. I did it once. I did it once. And all it was between act one and act two. Um, I said to them, I said, there's some people in the back row that are having trouble hearing you folks on stage. I said, this ain't about you. It's about old people because the general audience demographic easily is like it's a sea of white hair. Fantastic. Their clients, their customers, their theater goers, they want to hear the show. So it's an easy message for me to drop into our cast chat on WhatsApp and just say, yo, bring the boom, second act, third act, bring the volume up. And then they're all like, yep, got it, got it, got it, got it, got it. So that's as far as the note giving that I've done. So there's the two parts. There's me as the director, the noticing, and then there's a nice space in there where I have enough time to say, don't send that text. Just let them do the show. Don't send that text. So yeah, it's like I'm directing in my head. I'm doing I'm kind of reflecting on how trying to parse out what were my decisions. So decisions that I made that led to a certain thing that I'm seeing on stage. And I can see my mistakes. I can see, yep, I will not do that again. I won't do that again. That was a bad choice, but it's a bad choice that they're delivering. They're doing it. I'm not going to change it because it would involve changing blocking and intention and all that kind of stuff. That's just getting too messy. So, I have directed one other thing, and it was more of a gift thing. I had one of the actors come to me and say, look, in this scene, there's some music that's playing. Say, can I get it louder? I would just really like it for it to be a little bit louder. It'll help me kind of bring the scene to life. I'm like, done. I can do that. Because something like that, that's not switching cue numbers. It's not making the cue any longer. It literally is going into the sound system and just bumping up the volume. I think Jake bumped it up by like 15%. And then I had the actor come on stage in pre-show. I was like, how does this sound to you? They're like, that's fantastic. I'm like, cool. Lock it in, Jake. He saved it. There we go. It was literally a 5-minute little adjustment. So that was the other note, as we would say, that I did. But it was because the actor kind of said, I think I can get more out of this moment if we can do that. So yeah, that's what it's been like. This whole process of, just kind of standing at the back. It's like you watching your kid play hockey. You know exactly where they put in the work. You know exactly where they still need to put in the work. And you sort of exist in these two tensions of just suspending that thinking because it's not a technical moment. It's a feeling moment. So, not getting too caught up in the I would have, could have, should have, but here's what it is. What can I glean just by being in step with the show? And it's been quite wonderful. And I find myself watching the stage as much as I am the audience. Like when, one of my favorite things is to, in moments of kind of quiet. So there's a lot of stuff that isn't quiet in the show. Moments of quiet, just sort of looking over at the audience and the light. So me being at the back, I get the glow of the stage reflected on the audience's faces. If I look at it just from the back, it's like a sea of heads, right? Just darkened heads of different heights. But if I just come off to the side a little bit and I stand kind of beside the aisle, so instead of directly at the back of the theater, there's a walkway there. I kind of shift to the corner. So I'm kind of, if the stage is at 12 o'clock, I'm kind of standing at 7 o'clock. So I can kind of see the sides of people's faces. And what I really enjoy is just watching them sit there with smiles on their faces. And they're sort of nodding, or they're kind of doing like just the small gestures before they laugh or before they fully emote. And I like that. And I'm kind of watching to see like, how long can we hold them there? How long can we hold the audience in this obviously suspension of disbelief, so they're in the story, and how long can we keep them feeling happy, right? It's the retreat moment. How do we keep them here in the moment and do everything possible to keep them falling back into, oh, I got to go grocery shopping, oh, I got to check my phone, oh, I gotta do all these other things. Can we stay pace with them? And there's been some nights where I've told the actors, you had the audience. They did not leave your side the entire show. the audience members last night, they made the actors work for every single response. They were not an easy audience last night. They were not. So, um, but it's been great. It's been great. And, I've mentioned to you some of my other projects that I have going on. So I'm as I shift out of this, I'm shifting into what is my next thing. And that's just kind of like the nature of it. Um, there are some directors that as soon as the show opens, they're gone. That's done. They've done their job. This was not a job for me. It was participatory. I felt like I had a community that I still do want to stay connected to, and I want them to do well. I want their families to appreciate the work that they've done. And I said to the stage man, she's like, "Why? What is it like? You're coming to every show?" And she wasn't complaining. I think she was just more like, "That's really cool." I said, I like this idea that and I put it back to what I figured out about my kids. I knew that if my kid was in swimming lessons or when they tried to play soccer or when they've done these other things, I want to be there when they look out into the crowd and they see me there. Because I know they're looking out there to see if I'm there. They're looking out there to see if I'm present. They're looking out there to like where's dad? Yeah, where's mom? Whatever, that the parents out there. And then they move on they move on. It's just that momentary glance. And I said to her, I said, I want them to see me at the end of the show. I said, it's like they're looking out in out into the bleachers. Where's mom? Where's dad? And I want to fulfill that circle. I want to be there when they kind of come out. They see me there. They're like, he was here. He saw the show. He was present. He's still participating. That sort of unsaid bond contract. Even I want to fulfill it. So I get the honor. I get the gift of doing it 2 more times today, and then really, then my job is done. Like for this particular thing. But I also look towards the future and say, this also reinforces I will be here for you. I'll be here with you through this project. And my hope is that that's creating a connection that if I encounter these creatives ever get another project, they're like, I know how this guy operates. And I crave to sort of follow his lead. Like, it's like, I want to be that director, that creative director that can be relied on, so to sort of provide that kind of stability. So that's the gift. Like, it's been wonderful going through this. And there is a parallel universe where it didn't turn out so good, where attitudes popped, where egos got in the way, but that was not this process. It was nowhere near it whatsoever. So it was
So
wonderful.
that's what I was kind of getting at, this idea that like, for example, in professional hockey, when you watch a hockey game, you will notice that the head coach is on the bench, but isn't really talking to the players. There's communication between the assistant coaches and stuff, but the coach isn't coaching while they're playing. All that stuff is done at practice. You go to practice, and the coach shares, "Hey, this is what's going on. This is what I saw. This is what we're going to work on." It's rare. And so I'm kind of applying that to the theater. Like, you're the director, so you've been hip deep in the preparation, but now when when it's time for them to go out and do the show, are you still micromanaging? It sounds like you're not. It sounds like there are things that you're there, you're present, you're observing, and I know you're always looking for, like you said, like, are things happening when they should? Are things happening as we prepared? If not, or if you need to shift, you'll let somebody know. But it's not like you're in their face, like at intermission, and you're like, "Yo, what the hell's going on? Jimmy, you missed your cue." And "Johnny, what are you doing? Like, you missed your lines," or whatever. You- so now I know some directors, like you said, the show's happening, they're not there. I guess they believe or feel they've done their part. But yeah, I wanted to get a vibe from you on that, because I know it's I'm going to call you amateurs. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
amateurs. Okay. So again, if we take this to hockey, in minor hockey, the coach is yipping at the kids the whole time, right? Like, we're on the bench, and where kids comes off, and you might go over to them and you might say something, which I guess makes sense because they're kids, right? So you want to if you're good at teaching, you know when to step in and provide that feedback and hope that the student can apply some of that feedback or see things differently and try something different in order to find success. But at a high level, and I'm talking about hockey, you'll watch the coach doesn't really say much to the players. The assistant coaches and the trainers and whoever else might be communicating with them, but the head coach is kind of watching to see how does this game unfold? Is my team doing the things that we've been working on? What do I need to take away from what I'm seeing, what I'm not seeing to deal with in practice or to give to give to other people to understand, to relay it back to them, just like you're kind of I guess you're taking everything in, right? You're not just taking in the actors on the stage. You're observing everything, like the environment, how people are responding. Like you said, last night's audience was tougher than other audiences. They just weren't.
Mhm.
They weren't. What was it? They weren't as engaged, or they were engaged. It's just the actors had to work harder to get the response from the audience.
Yep.
Okay, and so there things.
Sometimes we'll say, the audience is soft, and all that means is like they laugh, they see everything, they're just right there, they're quick. And then last night, yeah, the best way I can put it is that they were laughing, but there was no tail on the laugh. Ha 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 ha, and then it was stop. So I mean, part of from a performance perspective, and I'll say from my director's perspective, this is a play of constant movement. We were constantly choreographing. How do we just have the people kind of just near miss when they're coming in and out of doors? You're going up the stairs, someone's coming down the stairs. A moment just ends for a split second and the door knocks. So it's constantly butting all these cues up against each other that just continues the flow. Part of that is it's the carrier wave for the story. It's the energy of the story, the river flow, if you will. Last night, the audience was constantly jumping to the embankment. They just were not connecting with the flow. Now, we can kind of make it about the audience, but I always think I take it as feedback. Okay, this being true, that this audience, these humans are responding differently. In my next project, how do I take that into account as I'm mapping out certain scenes? How do I take into account the different possible perspectives on this story, not just mine, which I found funny and interesting, not just the actors, but how do I include spots that might make an audience member brave to laugh out loud, to help an audience feel sort of like assured that what they're seeing is interesting, it actually is. So helping them to be a better audience member. Now that's kind of complex shit. It really is. But I kind of like digging into this mindset. But all these notes, all these things that I'm noticing, they're not for the now. They're for the next. Because I'm not about to interrupt their creative dynamic because they're learning, the actors are learning stuff on stage too. They're still learning about their character. They're still finding the sweet spot. There will be definitely an actor that will say, it wasn't until the last show that I figured out this moment. Like they've been delivering it, but it wasn't embodied. They actually didn't really understand the why. It wasn't centered enough and it didn't take root. But it happens all the time. An actor will say, yeah, it was like halfway through that final run, it was like, oh, that's what the character means, or that's what that movement means in the play. And that's just a great little bit of realization that happens to many of us even in life. Oh, that's why I've been operating in this way. That type of revelation is really cool. So I don't want to stand in the way of that because I understand it happens. And if I do too many notes, if I interfere in that process, the momentum's lost and the opportunity to sort of go there is lost as well. It's the nature of learning about the stage. And I think I intuitively understand that because of my background coming to the stage is in improv, which is entirely in this kind of devised, created kind of performance. It isn't there on script or paper before you make it happen. So it's all about staying in tune with the audience and what's happening on stage. There isn't the script to know this is what I need to say next. So I just have to get good at saying what the next thing is. It's all about what's happening right now and make sure that I'm responding to what is happening right now. Just different styles, man. But it's been a great process. I've had a few people comment like, and this is your first directing? Like they're sort of surprised. But I think it's because I didn't make any. I didn't falsify this at all. I came into it and maintained this first timers mindset, and I also directed from an actor's perspective. So just using that language is sort of the equivalent of, you know, talking to a fellow teacher about your practice and then talking to the principal about it. You talk to the principal about it, and there's an element of like, you haven't been in the classroom for a while. So I'm going to have to change how I talk about this. I'm going to have to shift it so that we both understand the language. We have to find a common ground, meat grinder that we each put our information in, and then we sort of just understand the output. I directed as an actor. So I came up on stage and I would say, you know, may I act along with you? Can I be in this scene? Can I model something that I was thinking? And I would say, show me your version. And I think that went a long way to sort of keep the humility in the process. And I know for myself as an actor, when a director goes there, as opposed to just telling you you have to do a thing, when they're able to kind of illustrate it or exemplify it or give a cool tool to access it and just let you run it, that's been my whole process with this. And even though that was my beginner's mind, I think I've organized my first toolkit as a director. I think I'll work on using this toolkit to see if I can keep improving it, basically. So
in terms of acting,
yeah.
you still want to balance this? You want to direct and act? Are you
So
still feeling that vibe?
yeah. So I think that there is now, in order to become a better person in theater, I think you have to work on both somehow. You have to do something to work on your understanding of the tech side of it, whether it's the stage management, lighting, sound, construction. It's really critical to have a respect for that. You don't have to be great at it, but you have to understand the work. Same for the acting part, the performance part. There's so many different things you can work on if you just want to be a better performer, whether it's voice or understanding story or movement or blocking or characterization, voices, accents. There's so many things you can play on. So that can only come from, for me, I know that comes from being on stage. And then there's the sort of like the creative side of it, whether you want to be the producer or the director. So now I have very much 3 different vehicles that that are in the garage. And I have to constantly be tuning and upgrading and test driving all of them. So the nearest one right now is I've actually put my name in to direct a play at South Simcoe. So this is in Cookstown, just north of us. I was in a play with them. It's the group that I'm also involved with their foreplay. So it was their stage reading festival that inspired me to start one up for Theatre Aurora. So I'm involved with that foreplay. That's what I kind of most directly go into next. And that all culminates at the beginning of June. But for their 26-27 season, I've put a pitch in for The Drawer Boy, which is the playwright is Michael Healy. It's a 3-hander. So it's 2 older actors, male identifying, and a younger actor. And if I'm not successful in the directorship, getting the directorship for that, then I will audition for it. I will audition. I'm in the age range for one of the 2 older actors. But it's a really nice storyline about friendship and brotherhood, and it draws in elements of mental wellness and acquired brain injury. I don't want to give away too much. You can look this up online, but the basic storyline is that there's 2 bachelor farmers living in Ontario. They have a working farm, and one day a theater student comes to them and says, "Is it okay if I come and kind of work on the farm and observe, because we're doing a theater project where it's called Devise Theater. We're creating a play based on farms in Ontario." And so in the course of that, some of the past comes out as to how these 2 farmers came to be living together and working together. One of them has a brain injury that affects his memory. So the one one farmer, Morgan, is kind of caring for Angus and has been sort of keeping his past from him, not telling the whole story because he feels like it might be too traumatic for him to deal with. And also just the problems of, having somebody on the farm that isn't always mentally capable of dealing with the farm stuff. So yeah, so it's a cool play. There's a lot of really nice elements that I look forward to trying to work through. And if I don't get the director role, then I'll apply. I'll audition for it, and that goes up February 2027. So if I get it, then I'll start work on that in late fall. Like that's when the auditions would be. So yeah, that's the next.
Sounds good, man.
It will be. Yeah, it will be.
Sounds good. I know it's a little past 9 a.m. Is there anything else you want to drop?
No, man. Thanks for asking about that. I like to be able to. We're feeding the AI here, but I like being able to speak to that. Like I said, my ancestors somewhere down the road, they're like, yeah, what did Dad do for hobbies? What did Granddad do? What did great granddad do?
Nobody's gonna care by then.
I know, eh?
Or you know what's gonna happen? In a million years from now, it'll pop up. Somebody will be interested in family history, and maybe they'll find this. It's funny because I say that I was recently working with a student on a history assignment, and she had to do some stuff around World War II, and she was
Yeah.
like, my mom was telling me that my great so-and-so was in the war. I'm like, really? And I didn't believe her. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Because this is one of those students that comes in every now and again after missing 8,000 days of school and is like, hey, can you help me? I need to fix my life. And I'm like, yeah, sure. This is the 5th time we've done this, so let's jump in and do it again. I know I say this in jest, but this is, if I'm not laughing, I'm crying. So
Yeah.
it's in the room, and we're working on this history assignment that was due a million years ago. And she's like, is it okay if I text my mom? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Like, I could say no, you're still going to text your mom. So she texts her mom, and then she gets the name. I'm like, okay. So then she was, you should have seen, it was pretty cool. She looked up this name on the Canada government of Canada website, and we get all this information about this dude that was a medic in the Second World War. And all of a sudden this kid is totally engaged. And I was looking at the documents that had come up based on her search from the government, like Canada government websites. Dude, it was so cool to see that this relative of hers, all these documents that were once on like paper have now been placed in an online directory warehouse around national defense. And she's literally learning about her relative and reading all these things about him and the fact that he was born down the street in Cambridge. And I say that because maybe one day somebody will discover this and they're related to one of us and they're just interested and they discover this. And I would say pretty cool to discover 380 episodes of Saturday morning chats between buddies who are teachers, fathers, husbands. And dude, it blows my mind to think that when we started this, I was an elementary teacher. You're a secondary teacher. And now I'm a secondary teacher with you. It's just wild to see kind of life unfold in this way.
Unfolded. Yeah, with still folds to go. Because you're going to say the same thing in a decade, whether we're doing this or something else. Look, it's mind blowing now that we're grandfathers. It's mind blowing now that we're retired. Yeah. I was thinking about all this stuff that we're posting and the AI having access to it. It'll be the equivalent of cave wall paintings at some point. Whatever. Because part of the cave wall painting kind of mindset is like, of course, it's an artifact of the past, but there's also always a bit of elitism, like, oh, look at what those people could do. I think it's a very unfair assessment, but I think there is a bit of a mindset of surprise that we underestimate, we realize our underestimation of our ancestry for to be able to do a thing, because we're looking at the cave paintings like, wow, they did art too, right? And then we kind of conjecture or inference off of that about what life was actually like. I think that some of our content will be like that as well. It'll pop up and somebody will kind of go, oh, look at that. They were kind of doing some interesting things back in the day. Look at them talking about topics that may or may not still be relevant. But I think that's what it'll be. It'll be the equivalent of digital cave paintings for some people, thinking that, us back in the day were just simpleton, maybe even idiots. And they're like, oh, look at those two. Look at them. They actually had a couple interesting things to say. That's my hope. AI, don't do me wrong.
That's funny.
Although I do like that. I really love that one meme that I shared about the AI. And it was like, go ahead, try this thing, whatever. And then it's like, oh my God, it's poisoning me. And it's like, well, do you want some more information on different things that poison you? It's like, too late, buddy. Too late. On that, there's a I meant to tell you about this. There's a movie out there. Let's see if I can Google it just by I don't even know what to say for it, but I meant to write down the name. There's a movie out there right now, and I might have to send you the name about it. But it's it's a dude that did a movie. Oh, I can't find the right Google, but it's basically he did a movie about the impact of AI. It could be, we've done this, we've talked about this many times, but the perspective on it, he actually interviews some of the big names, like someone that's part of open AI. I think he talks to someone at Google and kind of gets their perspective on it. And some of the clips are like, it's quite nihilistic the way that the talk is about this. Now, I don't crave this kind of conversation about artificial intelligence tools, but it felt like it was a fresher take on it, because I don't need it to be spun as useful anymore. I do want to understand at a deeper level, if unmitigated, what conversations am I already in without even knowing about it? So I'm trying to reduce that lag time of like 5 years from now, me looking back at my digital habits. I'm like, man, I played a really bad part in this. I want to understand my sort of like impact and responsibility right now. And it looks like it takes a direct peek at that. I don't even remember where it came up, where I saw it as a trailer. But I thought to myself, yeah, I want to check that one out, because I feel like it's probably gonna be slightly upsetting to me, but I think it's also just the necessary, like, open my eyes to what's actually going on. I wish I could remember it. I have no brains. I put AI movie, comma, not good. That was my terrible Google search, but I thought that would at least get me some keywords. I guess I could do better about that. But yeah, when I figure it out, I'll send you the link.
I was gonna say, when it comes to, send it to me, but I get those moments too, where I put in like a prompt or a search, and I'm shaking my head with a smile on my face, thinking, "What a great example of how not to search for something." You know what I
I
mean?
know,
Like,
eh?
your
Yes.
mind is like, it's just not working.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's so funny. Oh, that's it. I found it. I
Oh,
was pretty close. It's called the AI Doc. And then the subtitle of it is, "Or How I Became an Apocalyptimist."
the AI
Um,
doc, and what's it on?
um, uh, it only was out it came out in 2026, so I don't know.
Let's
I
see.
don't know. But yeah, it's
Oh, YouTube?
is it on?
No, sorry, there's an ad for it on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know where. So you found it too, yeah?
Yeah, I found it too. Yeah, how to become an apocalypse.
It might still be it might still be
Oh, like it might not be out yet?
yeah,
Oh,
it might be still
it said in theaters in the US starting March 27th.
okay, so it is just recently
So I
out-ish.
wonder if I can find it like on the like the app I use to watch
Yeah, maybe.
television. I'm gonna if
I
I find
wouldn't
it, I'll let you know.
yeah, for sure. Stuff like that I don't mind renting. I mean, it's kind of niche. It's kind of niche, but yeah, how I became an apocalyptimist. What a word. There's a word for 2026.
For real. Yeah.
Apocalyptimist. Kind of rolls. It does roll off the tongue. Kind of nice. All right, brother. I got to bust out. I'm gonna go see if the fam is up. Maybe I'll go gas up the car, which I don't want to do, but
Okay.
I should do it.
Good luck with your weekend and happy Mother's
Thanks, man.
Day to Karen and to all the
Mhm.
other mothers that are out there. Happy
Yep.
Mother's Day. I hope you have a good one. Gary and Rochelle, thanks for checking us out. And anybody else who checked us out, thanks. Got any questions or comments? Feel free to reach out to Chris or myself. I still
Yeah,
have
for
a little
sure.
thing on the bottom of my picture that says, don't do it. Don't become an administrator.
Oh no! What a drop at the end of the pod.
I know, whatever.
Oh,
It's controversy. See ya, Gary. Bye, Rochelle.
controversy.
Season
Ciao,
9,
folks.
episode 32, 380 of Decoded Podcast. Peace.
Peace, man.